All right, welcome back to PricePlow. We are greatly honored to have Dr. Barrie Tan of American River Nutrition here with us today. Dr. Barrie, we actually just met last week at ISSN, and it was a pleasure meeting you. But now we get an hour or so to talk about GG and all the great things that you've been doing. So welcome to the show. I'd love to get just the full background, which does include vitamin E, and then let's get into GG because we've recently covered it, and we think it's a fascinating topic. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Ben. I'm loving this. So I'm looking forward to how we spend the next hour or more to discuss this wonderful ingredient.
Very excited.
Yeah. So if you can kind of walk us back, a lot of our audience, they know about the ingredient. They don't really know about you. So I would love to have a little bit of your background and how you've kind of walked into this whole business opportunity, this whole like biochemical opportunity to help improve people's health.
Well, thank you. A little bit of my background. I was born and raised in Malaysia, and I went to school in New Zealand, got my PhD in chemistry, and also emphasized on biochemistry. I did my postdoc in Auburn University, Alabama, more a football country, but I did some biochemistry, got into cancer research, and from there, I started my career as an assistant professor at the University of Massachusetts in Amherst, initially as a chemistry professor, and later in food science and nutrition. That, I did it for 10, 12 years. I left and then was interested in looking for phytonutrient that would better our health. And when I first did it, I have this book. Some of you will know this. You can download the book later like that. And this book here, I was going to South
And so
America.
just to interrupt you, for those listening on the audio feeds, he was holding up The Truth About Vitamin E by Dr. Barrie Tan.
Sorry, thank you. So I went to South America to look for the giant marigold flower because that was what that would protect the eyes, so to filter out the blue light. I did find that, but unbeknown to me, about 30 feet away from me is this fantastic, lovely annatto plant. You can see the British nickname this the lipstick plant. If you touch it, it will stain your hand. That's a color for coloring cheeses. Of course, I'm faking it. And it is truly an Amazonian plant. Here you see another pot here. That frog in the pot here is about the size of a penny, because the seed is about the grape seed. I just zoom in and took the picture, but this to tell you that the Amazonian tree frog was discovered in the Amazonian forest like that. They live on top of the hill. So it is true. It is Amazonian, and but it's probably undeserving for me to discover this because I was not in the Brazilian Amazonian side. I was in the Peru, the beginning side. But sometime in life, things fall on your lap, so I cannot claim the honor. I'm not a medicine man. I don't like looking at snake, stepping on snake, or bitten by mosquito. But there it is. I discovered a compound. It's 1 in 15 million. That's a crapshoot, And then I discovered that it was vitamin E. So in the extraction of it, to be useful, I must know how to get out. So when I did this, I was able to get the vitamin E, the lesser known vitamin E called tocotrienol. But at the bottom of the pot, I always have something that look a little brownish color, almost like unprocessed olive oil color. Occasionally, it may be like corn oil color like that. Is something there. I wasn't able to attend to that initially because I was paying attention to the vitamin E. And later, when I discovered what to analyze it, I found out that it's this compound called, it's a mouthful of a word, Geranylgeraniol. It's a terpene that the plant makes. And then I began to search the literature and found out, hey, wait a minute, this compound is common in plant as it is in mammals and humans. So there, my time was spent in the last 10 years to study this compound.
Awesome. So you didn't give this compound the name, did you?
No, I did not give this compound a name. It already had a name, GG. And just for the audience, right? In the plant, if you eat your vegetable tonight or any time, if you see anything green, chlorophyll, anything they have color like carotene, beta carotene, lycopene, like that, these compounds, chlorophyll in particular, and beta carotene, lycopene, astaxanthin, they cannot exist without GG in the plant to make them. So therefore, a GG is a building block for them. Now that's a plant kingdom like that, and we are mammal and human. So the audience, well, what is that in for me? In human, if you cut yourself, red things flow out. That's your red blood cell. There is no red blood cell without GG. That's a big statement, man. Like that. Mm-hmm. And then another one, we have muscle. And I know we're gonna talk a lot more on muscle. We cannot build muscle without GG. And then people know about CoQ10 and vitamin K2. They need GG for making. So then I said, my goodness, how come I never heard about it? I'll tell you why we have not heard about it. Because this GG has not found its way into textbook. And I forced myself to read about GG in the open literature. Then I found out, hey, GG is required to make all these lovely things, but have not found its way into the biochemistry textbook. I'm hoping that, God allowing, I can live another 20, 30 years. Then I'm hoping to pin down some biochemistry, and hopefully this can track itself into a textbook. And therefore, the audience may know more about it in years to come.
Mm-hmm. So it does seem like GG is a smaller molecule. So does it act as a building block in both the plants and animals, or do we create it endogenously in our own bodies first and foremost?
To answer your first question, yes, it is a building block for the plant, and it's a building block for the animal, which itself is a fantastic statement. You interview many people. If you take this or you take that, and it will increase testosterone, it will do this, it will increase that, or protect it from it. But I'm actually not even saying that. I'm saying that GG is a building block. It's required to make this and to make that. So that bit. Then you ask this the second question: does our body make it? Yes. If you look at GG, it's got five. Our human body make 5 carbons at a time. We call it isoprene. And GG have 20 carbon. So it's got 4 isoprene. So the body make 5 carbon, is stitched to another 5, then C10, is stitched to another 5, C15, and then another 5, and then become GG. So the body makes 5 carbon at a time, and it make GG. But after it make the 5 carbon with 4 isoprene group together, then it stops. It doesn't make 25 and 30. If you need more, then they have to stitch 2 GG together. Then you have 8 isoprene unit. Then you stitch another 2 more, 10, and then you have the entire length of a CoQ10. If I know the audience cannot see me, I will purposely move back. Here, you can see this. This is a CoQ10 molecule.
Yeah, on YouTube, they'll definitely be able to watch. So if anyone wants to see this, that is a long molecule for sure.
That is CoQ10. And then I'll put in front of it here, that's a GG molecule. So you have to put the whole GG molecule. I built this molecule to show people it doesn't just stimulate increase. You actually need this. Otherwise, you can't make them. So I think if the audience can understand that you really need this compound to make it, then people will realize, wow. So therefore, to make CoQ10, which is important for energy, athletes and muscle people need energy for the muscle to keep converting the energy for them to give the performance that they need. Then I said, wow, this, so not, yes, a fair bit is about testosterone, but for the performance and energy output of a muscle person, it's not just that. It has to do with CoQ10 to convert the ATP energy. So I'm just, anyway, I'll leave.
Right. Okay. I appreciate that. So what would you call, like a lot of times when we talk about building blocks, we're talking about amino acids. How would you classify this? Is it a vitamin, or like what word do we use for GG? Or is it
GG is not a vitamin. It's a provitamin. It is not an amino acid, and it's not a protein. So now I take it that your question is asked, how does GG make muscle? Like that. I tried to explain this last week also. The role of GG is for the synthesis of, listen to this carefully, skeletal muscle protein. And then if you make the skeletal muscle protein, then you aggregate them, they become muscle. So I'm hoping that the audience just bear with me. I'm trying to simplify the biochemistry like that. So it makes skeletal muscle protein and like that. So I will use the example of the albatross example. When you think of a protein, the protein is really a very large molecule, which is why if you eat protein, it is no way a protein would absorb right to the gut. It's not possible. The stomach would digest the protein to semi-break it down into amino acid, and then the amino acid would go in. I know people have to justify to the anal degree that if you take this protein, the protein will go in like that. They can explain a lot, but in the normal biochemistry textbook, a protein are digested, it goes in as amino acid, and then the amino acid is restitched together to make the protein. So what is the restitch? So let me capture the audience. I give you numbers. Protein usually have 20 to 30 amino acids, even larger. But let's say the protein has 10 amino acids. If you add them together, it only have 1,500 molecular weight, which is the tiniest of protein. Most protein have 50,000, 100,000. So you get the idea? So now, in the human body, this is in the biochemistry textbook. I'm not faking this. We have 20 essential amino acids, 20. We have a lot of non-essential amino acids that we use for energy building, but 20 essential. Then I said, well, I only want to know about the essential amino acid that build muscle. No, just hold on to that. 20 essential amino acid. If you don't have these 20 essential amino acids, you die, man. So I got to be paying attention. 20 essential amino acid. So now, if you have 20 and you're 10 amino acid, so to put the first one, the right amino acid, you're 20. You're 1 to the power of 20. So if you have 10, it'll be 10 to the power of 20. If you randomly stitch it, it will be 1 in 10 trillion chance to get that tiny protein. So what am I saying? What I'm saying is this. Right in the nucleus, the DNA and the RNA, they are wired to reproduce the protein 1 amino acid at a time. So when the protein is half made, it's half looking like an albatross. So something have to hold that protein together half made. That little unassuming nothing that is holding it together is GG. So then if you continue to stitch it, and eventually when it's all done, then you have other mechanism to unlatch the GG and it take it to the other place. Ladies and gentlemen, I bet that nobody ever tell you this. This is how protein is made in our body. So that unassuming nothing, which is GG, is holding it together. Now you wonder why, as we grow older, we lose muscle mass. We lose muscle mass because we don't have GG to help make those proteins. So I just explained to you in the simplest way how GG is required in the making of muscle and the making of proteins.
So GG is actually like I'm not sure if the right word is backbone, but it's kind of a backbone. Or
GG is GG is a backbone for the making of MK4 and CoQ10. That one. Yeah. But for the making of protein, it is just an accessory. But it's an important accessory because in the whole protein, there's no GG. After it's finished, then you have a train that will take the protein to the active site. If it's to the muscle, then to the muscle. If it's to the mitochondria, it go to the mitochondria, whatever like that. If it's to the eye, it make protein. We have millions of protein in our body. Our eyes, our hair, our nail, our skin, our everything. And those all require GG to make it. But for this audience, we care about, well, Dr. Tan, what about the muscle? The same thing. The muscle have to have the GG. If you don't have it, and why is it so important in the muscle? See, sometimes I'm saying this like I'm pushing for muscle. No, I'm just explaining to you. About 40% weight of a person is muscle. 40%. So therefore, if we lose muscle mass, it's a bad deal. We don't want to lose muscle mass. Now, I know folks out there, you work out like mad. Yes. Would you believe it? If you work out like mad, it will stimulate your body to produce GG. That is a piece that people didn't know about. If you work out, you stimulate your body to produce GG, and therefore it produce muscle. So they are related. So, but most people understand if you work out a lot, your muscle will build. So perhaps one of the silent worker to build the muscle is that your body stimulate the production of GG. Therefore, the amino acid can stitch together and the protein can be made.
That is awesome. Okay, we have a very large article we just covered on this, and we did not really talk about that very much. So I almost want to get in there and like start updating it and get some citations going. We'll have show notes on this as well. So that's okay. That's way more fascinating than anything I had even realized, because I know we're going to get into coenzyme Q10, vitamin K, and all that. But it seems like these small molecules, correct me if I'm wrong, the smaller molecules can get into cells better too, right? So like
Yes.
they're everywhere.
Yes, they're everywhere. They're particularly inside the cell. Inside the cell, you have this cell, the cell wall, and you have the nucleus. You have a mitochondria, but we have other things inside the cell. The scientists refer to this thing inside the cell as organelle. They are pieces of things inside the cell that make the cell work, and then they have endoplasmic reticulum, Golgi apparatus. But we generally know the nucleus. It make you look like what your parent gave to you. It make me look that's in the DNA, and then the mitochondria produce energy. So for muscle strength thing, is usually these two. But then there are other pieces as well. Now, let me tell you what scientists have done in the studying of this as it pertains to muscle. So if you have GG and you gave it to the animal, what happened? It may sound like I'm reading it because I don't want to lose track on it.
Mm-hmm.
If you have GG to build skeletal muscle protein, like the way I explained earlier, it will increase the force production. So they have studied that. It would improve cardiac contraction. And cardiac contraction is important. See, that means that it makes the muscle to cause the cardiac muscle to contract and expand. It will increase the soleus muscle. The soleus muscle is the one that is embedded inside our leg muscle. It would mitigate muscle atrophy. Athletes have accident, and then they have a plaster of Paris on them, and then atrophy would form when they open up the plaster like that, and then it would remove old. Now this part a fewer people understand. It would remove older or damaged muscle. See, if we have damaged muscle, we want the muscle to heal, but if the damaged muscle cell is no good, you have to remove them. That is the process called mitophagy. In other words, you remove the muscle that is no good so that you replace it with good muscle. GG does it. And lastly, a GG would increase the brown adipose tissue at the expense of the white adipose tissue. White adipose tissue stores energy. Brown adipose tissue burns for energy. So I quickly say the whole slew of things again. It will increase force production, improve cardiac contraction, increases soleus muscle, mitigate muscle atrophy, remove damaged muscle, and increase brown adipose tissue at the expense of white adipose tissue. Man, if I heard this earlier on, I would take GG at any age, particularly if I'm 40 and older. So there you have it.
So my question is, you mentioned decrease in GG as people age, but also just for typical humans, like, would you say most people are deficient in GG, or like what's the supplementation of GG? Is that because we're deficient in it, or because we're not producing enough of it? Like, what's the concentration in GG? In normal humans?
I would say that it tracks close enough to CoQ10 and testosterone. When a person is a zero at time of birth to about 25 years old, they probably would have enough testosterone. Unless they have a genetic disease, they'll probably have enough of CoQ10. And, not surprisingly, they don't lose muscle mass. But about 25 years and onwards, you will begin to see testosterone slowly drop, CoQ10 slowly drop, and then they have to work hard to resist muscle mass loss. So I would say about 25 and going up. But then, of course, if it is above 45, it's very obvious that they don't have enough. But even the 25 to 45, that would be a good place to have it. And also, not surprisingly, most muscle builder people like to eat meat. Isn't that interesting? And meat is where GG and MK4 is. You find a GG and MK4. Plant, you have them, but less. If it's in plant, it will be dark green vegetable. You have GG in it. So,
are the forms of GG in meats and plants, are they the same form? Sometimes we see like different forms of vitamins, but like similar. Like
yes, that's a very nuanced question, Ben. I like that. For GG, it's the same. For vitamin K, is not the same. And the plant make vitamin K1, and the animal make human as well make vitamin K2, and human make vitamin K2 because of GG, and the plant make K1 not from GG like that. So that for GG is the same compound for both plant as well as animal.
Now, do you know why it starts declining in older people? Obviously, we're going to want to talk about supplementation, eat enough protein and meat and everything. Is the mechanism known, or is it kind of the same as just everything else, where we just start falling apart?
I would say that the mechanism is partly known, but not in entirety. As we grow older, you remember I mentioned that we make 5 carbon at a time, and GG has 4 of these 5 carbon, a total of 20 carbon. We make this 5 carbon at a time. Now, to make the first 5 carbon easier, the second carbon less, and the third one less, and the fourth one is usually at risk, like that. So that's one piece. It is the last to be made, one. And also, as we go older, we take different meds, and statin is the famous one. Statin inhibit the first. I'm not saying that the audience takes statin, but it helps you to understand the mechanism. Statin work in knocking off the first 5 carbon, and the third 5 carbon is the one that make cholesterol, which is why people take statin to lower cholesterol. However, the fourth 5 carbon is GG, also drop. So therefore, when people take statin to lower cholesterol, they would lower GG. But until now, nobody even care. And the reason people care is because the doctors say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, do you have any back pain, muscle pain? The doctor is fishing for muscle problem like that. Now, for you and I, we may not be fishing for that, but everybody, including the audience, knows it. If you take statin drug, CoQ10 drop. So there people supplement CoQ10. Now, I'm here to let you know, if you take statin drug, CoQ10 drop, because statin decimate GG so badly. So GG is unavailable building block to make CoQ10. That's the reason. So therefore, when I explain this is real. This is actually how the body makes it. So if you messed up the GG making, it simply isn't enough to make CoQ10, and that's bad idea for anybody that need energy. They will have constantly energy deficit. So if you have somebody who's 25 to 45-year-old muscle building guy and athlete, and that person happen to have high cholesterol, for which the doctor would recommend them to take statin drug, then wow, bingo. So you just type my name. I publish many papers online. So if you read it, you'll clearly see the statin is going to stifle your body's ability to make GG, and you're going to struggle to make CoQ10. So, and you may risk a muscle problem, which is what people say statin could do. And by the way, if you want to read the muscle thing, you just look for the word SAMS. It's like SAMS. It just acronized for statin associated muscle symptom. Very, very overt, it just means that. So with that understanding, and now I'm overwhelmingly certain that if you don't have enough GG, it cannot make muscle. It's just that the statin accentuate the understanding of that mechanism, because it stifle the GG, and then the GG simply is not having enough and struggle to make a muscle protein, and hence when you take statin long enough, you will begin to have muscle problem. The doctors just call it myopathy. Hey, no big deal. Myopathy just means something wrong with the muscle, you know. So there you have it. They are somewhat connected. So if it is in the elderly, I know your audience is 25 to 45, but allow me just to explain the mechanism part. We all have elderly parents and grandparents. They have difficulty sitting down and getting up. They have sarcopenia. And sarcopenia is just an inability to make proper muscle. And in their case, it is definitely because they don't make enough GG, and therefore they are unable to make properly the protein that is needed to make the muscle. So.
Awesome. Yeah. So in our article, we definitely talk about the statin associated muscle symptoms and everything. So a lot of doctors, when they prescribe a statin, they will suggest CoQ10 because coenzyme Q10 is depleted. What you've learned though is like it's not as simple as that. There's levels underneath it, and GG is at that level where that's where the real problems are at. Would you, I know you're not a doctor or whatever, but if you had someone on a statin that was having some of these muscle issues and they wanted to continue taking the statin, would you suggest adding GG to the CoQ10, or just is GG kind of all you need, or do we not know enough yet?
Okay, I think we know, but know partially. We actually have a product. The first one on GG, we have GG Gold. So if people want to know why we call GG Gold, if you ever see that number, that means it's made in the United States, it's made in Massachusetts. We have self-affirmed grass. We never use chemical or solvent like this. So the audience should be proud of that. Now you mentioned about GG. Should we take GG and CoQ10? We have a second product. This one is called ProQnol. So we make the CoQ10 Pro. So ProQnol, we add the CoQ10, and the CoQ10 we add in is ubiquinol, the active form of CoQ10 plus GG. I don't know for a fact now that if you take statin drug, just taking CoQ10 is enough like that. So because GG does many things else. So I would still add GG, because if you take CoQ10, well, then you bring back the CoQ10 level, but then you may have muscle problem, and muscle problem is not directly related to CoQ10. So the ProQnol then is a certain amount of ubiquinol, CoQ10, and GG together, and we think that is a very good combo. In particular, when people are exercising, and then when they do the exercise, they found that the exercise recovery is slower, then the ProQnol may help, because it could be a muscle regeneration time, it could be a CoQ10 replenishing time. So the combination would be what I said. I believe Dan, my colleague, is wanting to do a clinical trial to test for that.
Yeah, that'd be cool to know. But I guess if we're talking about building blocks, you might as well start with a smaller molecule. It seems like both of them are safe, so you might as well do both together and everything.
Yes.
Now you mentioned exercise a little bit earlier on in the animal studies. You said it could mitigate muscle atrophy. Did that require exercise, or can it potentially mitigate muscle atrophy without exercise in case someone was injured, for instance?
Yes, it is actually both. In the study that was done, it was done in Japan, and what they did was they remember, this is animal study. They have to figure out how to do the study. They went into the muscle and they crimped the nerve of the muscle. So when they crimp the nerve is not able to allow the muscle to contract and expand like that. And when they did that, they gave those rats certain amount of GG, and the GG is able to improve the atrophy, because the muscle is atrophy, cannot work. So then they're able to do the normal function of moving the legs that requires the muscle. So that was how the study is done. So that would be a way to create experimental atrophy. But I would think that for muscle folks, they would hurt, they would have some kind of spraining of their muscle, or overwork on the muscle, then they will have to chill out and atrophy like that. And then if they take GG would be able to reduce the time of recovery. Maybe they'll say it like that. So, and by the way, I know this is as an aside, the original finding that GG work in muscle and the original finding that GG helped the older people to have strong bones came from Japan. And also that the GG would increase testosterone also came from Japan. And the reason Japanese scientists were studying that is because their population have the aging population. They want to help them to improve thrive and muscle work. And this is why they found out that MK4 does the job. GG does the job to improve testosterone, and they're able to improve muscle thrive.
Excellent. Now, I want to get into vitamin K and the bone stuff, but you just brought up testosterone, and that's something that our demographic would probably love to hear about.
Yes.
So I guess let's get right into the testosterone situation and where GG helps along that pathway. Can you kind of walk us through that?
Yes, the testosterone piece is like this. We conducted a clinical study. They are aged 35 to 45-year-old. And then we gave people initially 150 milligram of GG for a month. And then in the second month, we gave them 300 milligram. And then I'll just run the two together. So over 2 months, if you compare with the starting point, the testosterone increased about 15%. If you compare with the placebo, we have a placebo group, then the testosterone increased about 20%. I have actually talked to people last week, and I wanted to, sometime when it sounds negative, I like to address it. Then I remember the person said, well, Barry, there's nothing to write home about. Here we have fenugreek, and we have tonkat ali, we have one of these, some other thing. They increase it by 50% or so. And now yours at most can increase 20%. There's nothing to write home about. Actually, it stopped me for a moment, only a moment. Then I said, yes, it is not a magic to increase testosterone because GG is an endogenous nutrient. It actually works in your human body holistically. But if you think of tonkat ali, you think of those. I'm not saying that those things didn't work. I read the same stuff as you guys read, man. But I'm a scientist. I read about them and I study how it increase this star and this, that, and other thing like that. They just zap the particular protein, upregulate it, and then you increase 50%, right? But they are exogenous compound. It will increase the testosterone. But I'm thinking, hey, I want a gentler thing to do this because I don't want a huge sudden jerk of testosterone that could have other negative effects. We tried this on women. We did not have negative impact on women. Actually, they didn't increase the testosterone but didn't have negative impact. That means that this endogenous nutrient is a soft landing, endogenously help to support our body by increasing the testosterone about 20%, which I thought is good enough, is statistically significant. Increase CoQ10. What's there not to like to increase CoQ10? Is energy giving, and hopefully you're going to ask me about the MK4. I set that last piece together, and then GG would increase the muscle thing, which I mentioned to you earlier.
The biggest thing that I want to mention is, like, when you opened up this discussion, you mentioned that GG is not a testosterone booster. It is not an exogenous, like, it is a building block that we use inside of ourselves. And I think that you talk about Tonkat, you talk about Fidoji, you talk about all these, like, you know, the trends come and go. They are exogenous, like, superchargers, but we're talking about actually something that our body creates and utilizes that it could use more of. And I don't think that they should be counter to each other. I think that giving our bodies something that we are starting to have less of, something that maybe we are not getting from our diet, that will always come first. And comparing them in percentages of increases is fine for the people who, you know, want to obsess over testosterone numbers, but understanding that we are giving our body something that it really utilizes and needs, rather than an exogenous herb that just boosts testosterone. I think there's a huge compelling factor to that.
Yes.
This is not just a testosterone booster. This is something that should be in multivitamins, that should be in lifestyle products just for aging populations or people who want to perform at a higher level.
Yes, thank you, Ben. I think you put it beautifully and succinctly. I have now many people take the supplement, right? And I would say, and this is just, I cannot name names of people who take it. And then probably 1 in 3, occasionally 2 in 3 people who take it say that, hey, this helped me in my increasing testosterone and my bedroom activity. They say this. And then still 2 in 3 to 1 in 3 people did not have any sexual activity increase. But almost always, when people take the GG, I hear this very succinctly. They say they always find themselves to have a better well-being and they have increased energy. So I've been meditating on that. What exactly is the one that increased energy and well-being? I believe it's because they're CoQ10 and somehow the energy is working properly and the muscle is functioning. They are not like the strongest man, strong man type competition, but they have better well-being. And when they go for running and walking, they have better zest in doing that. So it's overall how this is working. I think when you get to ask me about the MK4, you'll see this holistic picture showing together. More so, but I want to save that last because the understanding of that holistic thing is difficult to grasp. Mm-hmm. But I already have took the time to explain to you at the very beginning, GG directly makes skeletal muscle protein. That it just is. Without it, so that part is a strong component.
I love it. I think my take is basically nobody has a Tongkat Ali deficiency in their body, but you could possibly, we don't have herb deficiencies. You're looking for nearly like a drug-like effect with that kind of thing. Whereas anyone, whether or not, if you want to be on the strongman competition, you go to the doctor, you get on testosterone and you really get after it and everything. And in that case, that person is not going to want to do extra herbs that may have negative consequences on the liver. You already have to deal with your drugs. But when you're talking about baseline level building blocks like we have here, whether or not you're on exogenous hormones, testosterone or whatever, it seems like it makes sense that you want to give it the amino acids, the essential amino acids, and the base vitamins and molecules like GG to let your body do its job. So yes. I think it's like a completely different conversation. It's really exciting to hear you kind of talk about it in that frame. So
yeah, I think even vitamin E, our body don't make vitamin E. Only plant makes vitamin E. Mm-hmm. I only call it a desert island because we have 20 to 30 clinical trials. It works on chronic condition. But the moment I stumble onto this GG, then I said, I would like to retire and sail into the sunset with this because our body make this darn thing. So if it make this thing, then the only question we need to ask, why is the human body make GG? The moment you grasp that, you're never going to let go. Your body makes this thing, So now I explain to you, it makes muscle, it makes CoQ10, it stimulates our body to increase testosterone. Oh, by the way, it also stimulates a woman's body to increase progesterone. You see, it had many functions like that. I know this is not the audience like that, so you can check me out, send me an email. When people take this GG, that increase MK4, it actually helps people to increase memory and memory retention. What's there not to like, But maybe another time you can interview me on this. But if you want me to, I'll frame the question. Usually I don't do this. I'll frame the question. How GG makes MK4? How MK4 helps in performance? I like to answer that question.
Please do. Yes. Please.
Okay. Before I answer that question, I like to tell the audience this. I purposely choose the green marker. This is vitamin K1. So they're from vegetable. A fixed amount of this phyloquinone K1 will go in the body. It will help us to seal the tears in our body and clot because we need it. But most of the vitamin K1 hydrolyzes. It cuts right in the gut, and a fixed amount of this would go in, and then most of the tail flushed off. The tail is saturated. So once it gets inside the body, I purposely chose red. The red is exactly the same as vitamin K1, but unsaturated, saturated. The plant makes this. And meanwhile, this is from the plant. It goes in the body, and then it looks for GG in 30 different organs, and then it's perfect. It just snapped together. That is MK4. I'm actually telling you, this is biochemistry, is never going to change, you know? So, and this is not stimulating to increase this like that. MK4 is found all over our body, even if we take normal vitamin K. And so therefore, GG is essential. Without GG, we cannot make MK4. So for this piece here, all right? So now let me tell you this. Now, our muscle building folks like the word myogenic promotion. That means promotion of muscle making. And the phrase that we use less, but equally important, is osteogenic promotion, the building of bone. Remember, the entire muscle is glued onto the bone on both sides to do this. Like that, the sinew and the bone are attached. Strong muscle is indelibly connected to strong bone. Just trust me on it. It has to be. Cannot be strong muscle and weak bone. No such thing. It has to be strong muscle and strong bone. Therefore, myogenic promotion and osteogenic promotion are together. They are hand in glove. And the role of MK4 is myogenic promotion and osteogenic promotion. Please make sure that even long after I'm not talking, you tell your audience these two has to be together. They are always connected. So now, in order to exemplify this, I will purposely say an opposite word. If you go online, you Google the phrase osteosarcopenia. People that have sarcopenia always have loss of bone mass. So therefore, people who are strong muscle men, they must have strong bone mass. Otherwise, it's not going to work. So, and the role of MK4 in this is, it makes, listen to this, it's very simple. And this is actual in the body, not this induced someplace else, no such thing. It's just actual. MK4 makes a vitamin K dependent protein. MK4 make VKDP. You can Google this. So vitamin K make VKDP, and this vitamin K dependent protein made by MK4, it is important for calcium transport. It just is. That means MK4 sweeps the calcium from soft tissues to bone. Now that I explained that to you, I've explained it. If you think of a seesaw with a fulcrum, normally speaking, a person here, 200 pounds, 200 pounds, then it's properly like this. But in calcium, it is 5% in soft tissue and 95% in bone. So when you have this, then this is perfectly balanced. That's a very precarious balance. If you have, say, 6% in soft tissue and 94% in bone, you already will look like this. It's not working like this. It works like this. That means you have 1% more calcium in soft tissue than needed. Then why is that bad? Well, you and I have heard of kidney stone, gallstone, and calcification of the artery. These are not good stuff. So let me then now, having known that, that is the role of MK4. And how do we make MK4? GG. So now let me post this, right? And then I'll pass it back to you because I'm sure you have questions to ask me. If I say the opposite, it would highlight what MK4 does in muscle function. I'm very specific. If I say the opposite, it will highlight what MK4 does in muscle function. Vascular calcification. If you have vascular calcification, you will restrict the blood flow. Well, if you're a muscle guy, you don't want to restrict blood flow. You want the blood to go, And then the next one is you have heart valve calcification. This is a little bit more scary. We don't want calcification in the heart valve. If you have heart valve calcification, it will restrict the pumping function. Well, muscle people need the heart to pump. And then the third one, and this one here is most people don't think about them. You have cartilage calcification. What does this mean, cartilage? You will restrict the joint flexibility. Well, exercise people are moving their joint all the time like that. So now if you flip it positively, you have proper calcification in the vascular, the heart, and the cartilage. What does that mean? It would increase your blood flow. It would improve your pumping function. It would increase the flexibility of your joint movement. Now, if I were to be a strong exercise guy, I'm going to love MK4. And how did MK4 come about? It is requiring GG for the making of MK4 inside the human body. So I am so glad you are the first interviewer that I dumped this onto. I buried myself because the other part I have said that many times, but I keep bugging why the GG is needed to make MK4. Now I'm able to explain. It actually helps people that have to improve their muscle function. This is not normally spoken. This piece is not normally spoken, and MK4 requires GG to be making because this is it. That's MK4, and the entire red thing is GG, and the only way you can consume MK4 in food is meat. Remember last week I said that? If you eat vegetable, you can only get vitamin K1. So back to you.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for putting that here. So I have a few questions more about like practical applications and everything. So to me, I think you've made a very, very good convincing argument that our listeners should explore taking GG for sure. So like, great job there. I guess the question is, if someone's already taking MK4, or if you were taking MK4, would you add GG to it? Or can GG be used to replace an MK4 supplement, for instance?
Okay, this question you have has a facsimile to the CoQ10 and GGP.
Okay.
I would say right now, I would not do both. For example, if MK4 specifically is to sweep the calcium from soft tissue to the bone, like I explained, then MK4 would do that. GG in and of itself is not sweeping the calcium to the bone. It's after, upon making MK4, it would do the job. So I would still take the two together because the GG will ensure that my muscle mass stay intact. The making of the muscle mass is not related to MK4 directly. The sweeping of the calcium to the bone is. So there you have. So I would still take the two together, and we are trying to convince company to have GG and MK4 together.
That's kind of what I'm doing. So throughout this whole episode, you've mentioned a few things, a couple that I forgot about, where we kind of like sometimes we consult on the side and we formulate supplements, and you've given me a few ideas. So that's kind of why I'm asking, like, should there be a better MK4 with GG?
Yeah.
And you just answered that that's what you're looking for.
I would say if people care about bone health, people already know about putting in some calcium, some mineral, and then vitamin D. And then, so for that piece to add on to would be GG plus MK4. MK4 is forever attached. Oh, I never explained this. How does MK4 make the calcium go to the bone? It makes this protein called osteocalcin. And osteocalcin is a hormone. And osteocalcin can only be made when you have the vitamin K dependent protein that is made by MK4. So when the osteocalcin is made, it will grab onto the calcium and will shuttle the calcium to the bone. That's how osteocalcin works. And that's a very gentle, for Ben and Mike, that's a very gentle human body way to bring the calcium to the bone, as opposed to a drug. The famous drug that traps the calcium in the bone is bisphosphonate. It's called Fosamax. It's bisphosphonate, and postmenopausal women take bisphosphonate. What is bisphosphonate? It's an inorganic phosphate what would be, how do I explain to the public what bisphosphonate? Toothpaste. Ladies and gentlemen, toothpaste. That's bisphosphonate. So if you take that, it will just grab onto the calcium and stick it to the bone. That's a very inorganic process, but it does make to fix the calcium in the bone. But my goodness, our body is not inorganic. Our body is an organic structure. So and then vitamin K does that work. So again, that goes back holistically to GG. So can you imagine this? I am learning as a biochemist. You and I don't need to force anything. The moment you were born, before you and I even have the brain to think, before you two guys become famous and write your PricePlow thing, just remember, your body already make the GG and transport the calcium to it. And now you are in your 40-something, I'm in my 70 years old. I now found out, oh my goodness, this is how my body make GGs for. So it's really cool, to know this. So I'm really, really excited about this.
Awesome. Thank you. So, okay. You just mentioned like, we don't need to force things. And so in the context of this conversation, at least, we've spoken about calcium in kind of a negative light in terms of all the calcification that could happen inside of arteries, soft tissue, joints, and everything. In your opinion, do we really need to supplement a ton more calcium if we're doing everything right? Or I'm not saying to actively avoid it, but do we like really need to go out of our way to get more calcium if we're doing everything else right?
Mike, you're asking a very insightful question, and thank you for doing that, because sometimes when people don't ask, and I forgot and I passed by, the FDA RDA recommended daily allowance for calcium is 1,200 milligram. Most of the FDA RDA is too low. I think for calcium is too high. I think we are naive to think that if we take huge amount of calcium is chalk, that it somehow would just go into the bone. That's just naive. Calcium going to the bone is a hormonal process. What makes you think that it will do that? And the calcium is not littered into your kidney, to your gallbladder, and worse, into your artery. So calcium has to be directed hormonally to go to the bone. I would say if we were to need calcium, it would be probably about 5 times less. I'm making up the number 5 times less. Perhaps 200 to 300 milligram calcium would be adequate. Most people would have that enough from food. Or half a glass of milk, you probably would have that amount. When we take, it's more the other way that can help the transport of the calcium to the bone. And the reason that I don't recommend people to take the entire 1.2 grams of calcium per day. That is to answer your question. But do we need calcium? Yes, because when we pee, certain amount of calcium comes off, so we need to replenish it, but not to the extent of 1.2 grams a day.
I greatly appreciate that answer, because there are some people who would not have gone out and said that. So thank you very much for that answer. I've kind of come to the same conclusion when looking at some of the calcification stuff. So that's kind of why I was asking. Wow. Okay, great. Well, yeah, Ben, do you have any other questions? I think I've kind of gotten like my basics here on GG. I'm not sure if you want to give us a basic like primer on vitamin E, or if we could save that for a future episode as well. I really honestly have gotten like everything and more I've wanted out of this, out of this 50-minute conversation. It's incredible.
Partly because I've done this many hundreds of times like that, and with other influencers, sometimes they're more time, less time. I think last week when I spoke in ISSN, I just feel bad. I 2 slides short and a half hour, and I believe that the last person took 2 minutes into it. So I lost a couple of minutes, but I wanted to finish on time. So otherwise I would have done it. I would say this. Since of my 40-year career, first 30 years were given to this vitamin E. So I'll give you a very short synopsis, and maybe another time you can cover it. Your audience will stand to be blessed if you interview me on vitamin E. Vitamin E is mostly known as tocopherols and tocotrienol.
Mm-hmm.
Most people know tocopherol, and most plants that we consume today from vegetable oil, they're tocopherol. Fewer plants are tocotrienol. I got into this study of tocotrienol in the early 1980s, 40 years ago. And when we had done study on tocopherol comparing with tocotrienol, always tocotrienol is head and shoulder above tocopherol. I just published 2 papers. My colleagues published 2 papers on people with type 2 diabetes. So why so special about tocotrienol vitamin E? They're special because they work on chronic condition. Give me some example of chronic condition. We have tested it on people with pre-diabetes, diabetes, people with dyslipidemia. That means the lipids go really high, like triglyceride and cholesterol. And most recently, we studied people with fatty liver disease. Many people in the United States have fatty liver disease. So if you just mention fatty liver disease, type 2 diabetes, and then right now we're having a study now for people who have obesity. Man, that's a fantastic catch-all, and we see that it reduces inflammation, lower triglyceride, manages the sugar. You got to interview me on this another time like that. And totally unrelated to this, we have 8 clinical trials in Denmark and in Florida for people with cancer. So if the next time you just do this, you do yourself, then you say, well, this may not cover my 25 and 45-year-old. And I'm asking your audience, I'm speaking to your audience, please do not let go on that talk, because you have parents, you have grandparents. You may do them a service, even though you may not have chronic condition, that you may bless them. You should and would want to listen to me with Mike and Ben interview me on the vitamin E, because you will bless your parent. They gave birth to you. They bless you. You should return something to bless them. And you would want to listen to that, even though you may have nothing in any of those that you may need. So, well, I make a pitch for you now to interview me, for them to stay on for that one.
We're already scheduling it for sure. No, I mean, just because our core demographic is mostly athletic males doesn't mean we have a lot of people within the industry who listen to this podcast as well. So there are other dietary supplement formulators who listen, and you've made a very compelling arguments in favor of this. So I think like just the goodwill and trust that you've built up makes people want to look into the tocotrienols as it is. But there are definitely people who listen to this podcast who are formulating supplements for all ages. And I mean like from kids all the way to geriatrics. So there's definitely other people aside from athletes that are listening. So we do greatly appreciate it. What we're going to do is in the show notes, we will be linking to the main article that we wrote that I almost want to add a couple more things that we've learned here, but also we're going to have some citations and references backing up some of the things that you've made. And we're greatly appreciative of you coming on here.
Wow.
Are you busy on social media at all, or can people follow you, or do they mostly
I do. Once you post yours, and I have Dan and another lady here, they'll help me to post yours on. So we'll broadcast and you go further. I did the same thing for other people. Once you post, you let us know and we'll link on, then even more people will come to your website to hear. So it ricochet in many directions, and people do follow me because I've been a vitamin E tocotrienol speaking on this for so long. And GG is more recent, but people are following me. If the audience would simply type my name, I just recently wrote a paper in Frontiers of Physiology, and I wrote how people who take statin to help people with COVID should consider taking GG. It's a totally different piece. And then in it, I describe CoQ10. I describe how this would help people. So you can Google and find that. So we can sit tight and continue to tune in. We have many clinical trials we plan to do with GG like that. So one on exercise, and one on people who take statin drugs with myopathy. And one last thing, if this doesn't still already convince you, we provide GG to a South African medical doctor. He's got the the entire Springbok. I don't know the audience know it. Springbok is South Africa rugby team. And rugby people, they put a lot of energy out, and they take this, they help to improve their endurance and their performance like that. I don't know the outcome of that study is still ongoing, that they study on athletes like that. And Dan is hoping to do some clinical trials on this as well. So. Well,
Awesome.
Thank you so much, folks. So I'll wait for you to come up. Just let Jen and Dan know. I'm sure once you have it, we will follow through with it. And when the time comes, you work with the other two, and then you can put another interview on the vitamin E. We'd love to do that as well.
Thank you so much. And just so people know, you are Dr. Spell the whole word out, Dr. Barrie Tan on Instagram, BarrieTan. And then, we'll also link to the LinkedIn and Facebook pages as well. And American River Nutrition is the name of the company. And so, we're going to, every time you have a new study that comes out, we will cover it. Ben will make the quick video. But if it gets too complicated, we're just going to bring you on instead and have you explain your study.
And that would be fine.
All right.
And thank you for you two guys, right? You are the hosts. And you do this all the time. You simplify, you ask the right question so that it's digestible, understandable to your audience. And I have great appreciation for that. I'm unable to do that so well, but I when I know of something to do well, I try to put it in the written form. So now I'm working on a book. The one that I showed you just now is The Truth About Vitamin E. I'm working on a book called The Truth About Vitamin K. It'll be available in the fourth quarter. So when that time comes, and then you can do another interview again, we will have another clinical study finished by that time. So there'll be more updates to come. So
perfect. Yeah, you know how it is when you publish a book. You got to go on the podcast road show and everything. So
yes,
get ready for your pitch there. Awesome. Yeah. And then finally, last thing on PricePlow.com/American-River-Nutrition, you can sign up for alerts so that we notify people when there's a new article mentioning any of your ingredients, or which may include just like products that have it as well. So I know that there's a few on our GG Gold article where we talk about it. There's Designs for Health, and there's a few others that are at the bottom of that article. Synergetic, Extend Life has a pure GG, and I have maybe one other, Synergetic. Yeah. And so that's it. So we'll link to that article.
Yeah,
Dr. Barrie, thank you so much for joining us. This is a fun one for sure.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful evening, guys.